Sister Marie Luisa Vasquez.
That's right.
Beautiful name.
Thank
And
you.
from what I've been able to observe since your time here at the DLC, specifically Regina, you are the epitome of kindness. So thank you for spreading that so beautifully.
Well, that's a very beautiful compliment. Thank you.
It comes from the heart. It comes from the heart. And you come from,
Douglas, Arizona.
oh my. And how did that happen? How did your family arrive in Douglas, Arizona?
Well, my father came from Mexico, the interior part, a place called Gomez Palacio. And his father and mother brought him to the States through the port of entry at El Paso, Texas. And my grandfather got a job there, and they were there a few years before they came to Douglas.
Oh.
When they came to Douglas, he opened up a little neighborhood store, and that's the way he made his living.
Did he meet your mother along the way in El Paso, or?
No, my mother lived in the state of Sonora, in the capital city, Hermosillo. That's where she was born.
In Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then they moved to some of the small towns not too far from the North Mexican border.
Mm-hmm.
And she was there at a time when there were a lot of Indian uprisings on the border. And so she got tired of running from them, and she said...
You mean hiding from them?
Yeah, running and hiding from them, and also jumping over dead bodies, she said. She told me, I asked her, and she told me that. And so at the age of 19, she came to Douglas, where she was a domestic. She worked in homes. She had 2 sisters and a brother. Her mother died when she was 12 years old. And so her father, she was kind of in charge of them, you know,
Sure.
because the father had his own business. He was a cobbler. And my mom says, we were poor, and we may not have had anything, but she said we were kept in shoes.
And they were always repaired.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So your mother and father gave birth to how many children? I mean, your mother gave birth.
My mother gave birth to 2 boys and 3 girls. The boys are older than the girls. She had 1 boy, and the boy was born a year after they were married. They were married in 1918. He was born in January 1919. And he was not. He was born with a mental problem, and my parents did not know that until he started school. So what happened was that when he started school, the teachers noticed that he had a learning disability, and so they told my parents. And what happened was, as my brother grew older, he became quite difficult to handle. And finally, what my dad had to do, because he was afraid that he would hurt us, you know. And so he had to commit him to the state institution in Arizona. He stayed there for all his life, because even though we tried to bring him home, when they told us he was doing fine, when my mother or my dad would go up to bring him home, he didn't want to come home. So.
He probably felt safe in his environment.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have how many sisters living today?
I have only 1 sister. I had a younger sister, B, the baby, really, in the family. and she died, since I've been here, 2012, she died of ovarian cancer. She had a boy and a girl, Jerry and Judy. And let's see, the boy had got cancer, and he passed away, after she took care of him. She moved from where she was living, with her husband, and came to Tucson and stayed with him and took care of him. And then she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Oh, my.
Before he even passed away.
Oh, my.
So, yeah.
That's a hard life right there.
Yeah.
Yes. Marie Luisa, how did you happen to, what was your discernment about entering the Adrian Dominicans?
Well, I've always been, I'm a product of Catholic education through my sophomore year. So my first acquaintance with sisters was when I was about 3 or 4. I was in a preschool on the border. But I mean, I was on this preschool taught by sisters who were from Mexico. But they had been they came to Douglas because during the revolution there, they had they had to come over, and so they founded a novitiate, apostolate, and a novitiate, and in order to take care of themselves, they did schoolwork. They also taught business classes.
So how many years did you have them?
I had
All
them.
grade school?
No, preschool. I had them from I think I went there about 3 years, when I was 3, 4, and 5.
And then you had Dominicans?
And then I had the Adrians.
Oh, right.
But it was while I was attending the preschool, those novices and postulants were around there all the time. And so I happened one day, and I just loved them because they were so joyful. And one day I looked at one of the novices, and I said to myself, that's what I want to be.
Oh, my. At a young age.
Yeah, I was
about 5 years
a
old.
preschooler, yeah.
Oh, my.
And then what I did was I went over to Loretto School, which I was there from kindergarten until the 9th grade.
They had a junior high,
Yeah,
apparently.
because the public schools were on a junior high. Their schools were on a junior high.
When did the Dominicans come into your life? The Adrian Dominicans?
In 1949, because they took the school over from the Loretto Sisters.
I see.
Who even at that time were already getting rid of many of their schools because they didn't have enough sisters to staff them.
Do you think the history of our sisters going, excuse me, to Douglas was that the pastor contacted Mother Gerald, and do you know that history?
Yes, because we had boys from the seminary in Ohio, from the Josephinum in Ohio, and the pastor was acquainted with our Dominicans. Yeah, I'm sure of that. Yeah.
They're probably the first group in Arizona, I would imagine.
No, I'm not. Yeah. You know what happened? Our sisters took over a lot of the places where the Loretto sisters were. They were up in Flagstaff. They were in Bisbee. Yeah, they took over.
And Albuquerque? Well, that's New Mexico.
That's
though.
New Mexico, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's how I came to have the Adrian Dominicans.
Yes.
And then what happened was when I was in 9th grade, Sister Rose Cecile told me about St. Joseph's, but there were some other girls that wanted to come.
You mean the academy here in Adrian?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so I said to my dad, that I wanted to go and that I wasn't going by myself because there were 2 other girls going, and I begged. And in those, it wasn't expensive really when we think about
Today.
today. But
For
in
them.
those days it was, and for my family it was. But he sent me, and I was just here for that sophomore year because I knew my parents really couldn't afford the next 2 years. But I knew that I would be back.
Well, you saw the novices and postulants around even when you were a sophomore, right?
Yeah,
At
right,
the
right.
academy.
And
Yeah.
many of the sisters that I went to school at the academy with were also entered. I had one of them, in Sister Carol Fleming, entered after her sophomore year. So, and there were others, Sister, the musician, Sister.
Yes. Calvert.
Mary Ann Calvert.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so, it was a very good experience for me. I never regret that I went.
And then once again, when you're in your 70s, you did another discernment about coming to Adrian.
Yes.
How did that go? Where were you at the time? When
I was in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just knew that it was time for me to come. But I remember that we had a form sent to us maybe around the 70s, and it asked us to fill it out. And one of the questions was, when would you expect to be ready to come into Adrian?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I thought, and I said, well, probably around 70.
Mm-hmm.
And so there I was, 72, and I knew, that, I was ready. I was ready to.
Was it difficult to leave the beauty of the Southwest or the cornfields of Adrian?
Yeah, it wasn't. And I mean, it was and it wasn't. I knew, that I knew I had to come, and I loved my ministry, and I loved the place and the people, especially the people. So, but I did. I did, and Sister Daria and myself came in at that time.
Oh, well, that's the connection, because I
Yeah.
see you with her
Yeah, I
frequently.
lived with her about 15 years, on and off. So,
And you've been here about 8 years now, and you live in Regina?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. With whom in the apartment?
Sister Willard
Mm-hmm.
and Sister
Is it-
Net Sinagra.
Oh, lovely, lovely. You were a shining principal in
Queen of Heaven in Albuquerque. That's the first time I went to New Mexico. I was there 10 years, and I was in a very active parish. The parish, the pastor was, was the beginning right after the Vatican II, and he was so on target. He tried to implement many of the things. For instance, altar servers. He
had the young women.
and mostly it was kids, because one of his CCD students came up to him one time after they had a mass, and she said, "Why can't I be an altar server?" And Father looked at her and said, "Why not?" And the next thing you know, he had her. He had her there, and then we got lots of girls.
You're very fortunate to have a pastor like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and women giving communion, the same thing.
Well, your parish was known for innovating a program that
Yes,
caught on throughout the diocese.
the marriage enrichment program. It was parish-based. That was what was so important, because before, the programs were always diocesan based, and they were sponsored by the diocese. They had a diocesan team that did it. But our program began in the parish, and how I helped was that when these people were putting the program together, they asked me to do get them some films.
Yeah, provide some resources.
Yeah, right. And I did that for them. But they were wonderful. That's where I began to appreciate lay ministry. It was really an eye-opener for me.
So did the pastor ask some people from the parish to lead these weekends?
He had started, gotten people to start instructions for the married. And they had a whole series. And they would take a topic and discuss the topic, have a presentation and discuss the topic. And then he said to them one day after they had finished the series, he says, "Now what I want you to do is take that whole thing and make a weekend out of it." So they made the weekend out of it. They did, they started on Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday.
And that became a pattern or an example to other parishes. Didn't you travel around to explain and train other people?
Oh yeah, we spent many days on the road,
In the diocese?
In the diocese.
Santa Fe.
Daria, Father, myself, and this couple, the Johnsons. We went all over the state of New Mexico. And
to the different parishes?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever give this weekend training to any of the pueblos?
I don't.
Native Americans?
I don't remember that. But what we did do, the program branched out to Mexico, to Juarez. That's right over the. We were in El Paso, and then we went over the border, and then in a lot of our parishes in Albuquerque that we were in, they had programs in Spanish too. So we had it in both languages. We translated the program into Spanish. Yeah, it was marvelous. It was really marvelous.
What a joy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you were following Vatican II, empowering the lay people.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marie, was Marie Carmen there at the time with you in the school?
Yes, she
Marie
was.
Carmen Gonzalez.
Yes, she was. She was there with me. We came there together, and I left 10 years later, and she stayed on for a couple more years.
As the principal
As
also?
the principal, yeah.
What was your very first mission?
Oh, St. Gabriel's in Detroit. And I remember my crowd had stayed in because at that time they were really trying to get all of us, get our degrees. And so most of us stayed in, and we had to do the intercession.
Yes, I remember those.
So we went up till August the 1st, I think. And then those of us that were going to go on mission left, and we and Sister Rose Clement.
Was she the
down.
principal superior?
She was at St. Gabriel's, and she came in for me. And I remember Colette Slattery was with her. She was driving. But anyway, she came in, and she said, looked at me, and she says, oh, you think I had, she was getting $1 million. She was so happy, you know. Now, how I was more, and then I went to the convent and they were so welcoming, yeah.
My.
Yeah.
Well, that was a wonderful experience,
Yeah.
right? Did
Yes.
you stay in Detroit very long?
Just about 2. I went back for my 3rd year, and I was caught in a change. One of the sisters, Rita Eileen Dean, was the doctor wouldn't release her,
Okay.
and so she couldn't come. So then I was sent to Las Vegas, Nevada, and somebody came and took my place. But
Louisa, you could well be a travel agency consultant for the Southwest. I mean, you've been in Nevada, you've been in New Mexico, you've been in Arizona, California.
yeah.
Where would you recommend someone go to enjoy the most beauty here in the United States, among those states?
Among those states, I would say New Mexico, and the beauty and the beauty of the people, the cultures, the Indian, the Spanish, and the Anglo culture.
It all comes together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most. That's what I think.
Now, is Albuquerque or is it Santa Fe? That's the capital.
The capital is Santa Fe, and the seat of the diocese used to be in Santa Fe. But what happened was that I think it was Bishop Davis decided to come to Albuquerque because everything was happening in Albuquerque. The Santa Fe was the seat of the government. But most of the church, the larger church, was in Albuquerque. Yeah.
May I ask, 80 years ago when you were baptized, what name did you receive?
I received the name of Maria Socorro Vasquez. And the reason my mother gave me that name because she was devoted to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And she, so I was the first girl that came along. By that time, they really wanted a girl. And so I'm sure she was praying
To Our Lady of Perpetual
Help. And that's how I got the name.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then your religious name was to honor whom?
It was for my father and my mother. Marie for my mother, and Luisa for my father.
Well, it's a beautiful musical name, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And easy for the students to remember.
Yeah.
How did you happen to get to California?
I was in California. Actually, I was only there about 3 months. Went in September. No, 4 months, and I left in January. And the reason that I left again, I got caught in a switch, and so I ended up in Tucson, Arizona. But it was a good thing because I was studying for my master's at the time, and it allowed me the opportunity to go to school. When I wasn't teaching, and I also spent my summers there then.
Marie Luisa, throughout your life in school or in the community, have you ever experienced any discrimination?
I don't think so, and the reason I say that is because I was first in the beginning of my years when I was in grade school. With the sisters, we were in a protected environment. I've thought about that. I've reflected a lot on that. And the sisters were just wonderful to us, especially our sisters when they came, in 49.
Yes.
They loved us. and they loved our food and they loved our customs. And so I felt very comfortable, and so did the others.
What about when you went, after you left the academy and went to the public school at home?
I realized that there was such a thing as, discrimination.
They probably
because-
didn't call it that at that time.
No, because my classmates had stories to tell about, how much discrimination they suffered, while they were being educated.
Did you ever feel that personally, though?
No.
Oh, that's a
No.
gift.
I guess I've got a real gift of not taking things too personally, It's hard. It's
For
hard,
everything,
But
yeah.
but I can relate to people who really have had that problem.
Especially in the world today, in the
Yeah.
United States today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I don't sweep it under the carpet. I know it's there. I know it's there.
Do you have a favorite prayer?
Do I have a favorite prayer? Yes, I do have a favorite prayer.
Is it in Spanish?
No,
Oh.
it isn't in Spanish. My favorite prayer is the Memorare.
Oh.
I have said that since I was a kid.
Yeah, it's in your heart, in your soul.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And was there longevity in your family, your mother and father?
Yes, my dad lived till he was 99, and my mother lived to 92.
And when you think of the circumstances that they endured through their life, just the depression alone, and your father wanting to feed all of these mouths, he was very successful at that, wasn't he?
You know what? He was, from the beginning, my mother said, he never missed a day of work. He was always employed. So, we didn't have that problem for the little that, people made in those days. Yeah. My father was a self-educated man. He learned through experience. He was hired in an assay office. As a chemist. That's what he was, a chemist. And he was hired to test the ore for its mineral content.
Looking for copper?
Yes.
Yes.
And so he did that. He did.
He must have been very smart.
Yes, he was there for a long time in that office.
Well, until we meet again, thank you for sharing your story today. And I'm sure there are pockets that we missed, but overall, what a beautiful life and beautiful ministry and faithfulness as an Adrian Dominican. God bless you.
Thank you.